Hi everyone, I want to welcome you to JOFA's webinar this evening. It's a webinar with the Maharats first year, a retrospective. We're going to get the opportunity to speak with 4 Maharats who have been out in the field for the past year to learn a little bit about what their life has been like as female Orthodox clergy, to hear a little bit about their experiences, to hear about some of the challenges, some of the surprises, some of the exciting things that have happened. My name is Rachel Lieberman. I'm the program director at JOFA, and I'll be moderating our conversation tonight. We also have Aaron Steinberg, who's JOFA's associate director, who will be pulling the tech side together. He's working on the behind the scenes. He's working on the chat. If you look at the chat feature on the webinar, you'll be able to speak with Aaron there. If you have any technical difficulties, please chat him there. And if you have any questions for the Maharats, please feel free to write that in the chat window. This evening, we have 4 wonderful panelists with us. We have Maharat Ruth Blinsky-Friedman, Maharat Abby Brown Shire, Maharat Rachaels Feingold, and soon-to-be Maharat Rory Picker-Niece, who will be graduating from Yeshivat Maharat on Sunday. Over the last few decades, there's been a lot of discussion going on about Orthodox women clergy, about whether this was something that could happen, about what it would look like if it did happen. And there have been questions about title, there have been questions about responsibilities, questions about what an Orthodox woman rabbi would do, what she couldn't do. And tonight we really have the opportunity to speak to these women about what the answers to those questions are, what they look like in real life. We can stop speculating about the answers because we have the real life people with us. Since the ordination of Rabbi Sarah Hurwitz in 2009 and the establishment of Yeshivat Maharat in 2009, this conversation around Orthodox women clergy has become more concrete. It has become a reality. Last year, Yeshivat Maharat ordained its first graduating class, including Maharats Ruth, Rachel, and Abby, and on Sunday they will graduate their second graduating class, including Rory and Victoria Sutton. And there are over 20 additional students who are currently enrolled at Yeshivat Maharat. So the institution is clearly very vibrant and is clearly doing well. After the first year in the field, we'll now find out what happened. We have 4 panelists tonight with a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences. They each have their own unique perspective of how they've been working with their community and how their community has been shaping them and how they have been shaping their community. And it's really a great privilege to have them all here tonight to answer our questions. We are going to do a bit of a round robin to begin with. Each Maharat is going to speak briefly about her experiences in her congregation, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So if you have any questions for the Maharats, please feel free to send them in the chat, and we'll hopefully get to them at the end of the conversation. So first, I'd like to introduce Maharat Ruth Blinsky-Friedman. Ruth is working in Washington, D.C. at Oheb Shalom, the National Synagogue, as the Maharat. She is originally from Evanston, Illinois, and graduated from Barnard College in 2007. Ruth then spent 2 years studying at the Drisha Institute for Jewish Education in New York before attending Yeshivat Maharat. She is a supporter of dialogue and pluralism and has participated in the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College's Retreat for Emerging Jewish and Muslim Leaders, the Klal Rabbis Without Borders Student Fellowship, and the JCRC Community Connections Fellowship. She's also served as congregational intern at the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale and has interned at the Center for Jewish Living of the JCC in Manhattan. Ruth and her husband Yoni have been married for 2 years, and Ruth has taught Kala classes to more than 30 brides and couples. Thank you very much, Ruth, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you to JOFA for having us and for inviting us to do this, and of course, hi to all of you, and thanks for tuning in. So we were given a couple minutes just to give some background on the work that we've been doing this year, and I always say whenever someone asks what my responsibilities are at OHAVE, I say, well, my job description is 16 items long, and miraculously, I'm hitting all of them, which is great. And so I presented at our annual communal meeting a couple of weeks ago about the work I've done this year, and I really thought that to break it down in terms of some of the stuff that I've done that I think is typical to the role or expected of the role, or sort of stuff that's already in place in the synagogue, and then also another category of things that I've added, new stuff. So I essentially function in the same capacity as an assistant rabbi, which means that I go to Minion every day, twice a day. I am involved in life cycle events. We have a lot of births at our shul, and so I've been involved in many simchat bats and also brises. And so life cycle events, teaching classes, having chavrusas with a couple of different members of the shul. There's also a Reform rabbi in the area who she's a couple years older than me, but we're basically the same age and same place in life, and so it's a lot of fun to be able to study with her and have the relationship with her also. We also have a weekly kids program, an after-school program, and so I learn with the kids every week, and basically all of the different types of things you would expect from a shul. I also would say that another big part of my job is that I'm essentially in charge of all of the programming, and we do a lot of programming. So that's also a big part of the job as well. So that's the everyday. No day looks like the day before, but certainly there are many different things going on. There's always something new to be doing. So in terms of the stuff that I've introduced, and I was not replacing anyone. Our shul is growing very, very quickly, and 10 years ago could hardly get a minion on Shabbos, and now we have over 350 member units, which is really amazing, well over 200 kids, and so we've grown very quickly. And so some of the stuff that I've introduced, just because we've had another set of hands on board, is I started basically a conversion program. I meet with all the conversion candidates once a week, and we just have class and check in about different things. I've introduced young professionals programming. There was a population, let's say, single or married without kids, a population that didn't have as much of a role within the shul. And we do holiday parties and monthly classes, and we do stuff on Shabbos. I also do a women's Shabbos afternoon class, which is really great right after lunch. We have lunch every week, so we do a nice class together. And all the men always want to come, but we don't let them. It's just for women. So, and then there's other stuff. Speaking of stuff that's just for women, there is a part of my job stuff definitely that I think that I'm able to do because of the fact that I'm a woman. I would say a nice chunk of it is just because I'm a person and I work in a shul, but some of it is specific to the fact that I'm a woman. We did do Kala class refresher class, which was really great. I planned for it to take like 2 sessions. We just jumped through the material, but we did it in 4, which was amazing, and people were really excited about it and came to that. We also are in the process of building a mikvah, which is very exciting. Hopefully it will be done in the next couple of months. And so in anticipation of building the mikvah, I didn't want to just have it be a physical space, but to also be a spiritual space, an emotional space. And so I hosted a number of mikvah conversations, and women came and we just sort of talked about, like, what is mikvah to us? What's our relationship with it? How can we use our past experiences to craft what we want our mikvah to look like? And I think the most successful of all of them was actually a session I did only for postmenopausal women. And it was really wonderful and very, very interesting. I'd be happy to share more about that later or off the air. I would just say the last thing that I think it's very tachlis, it's very practical, but before the holidays and before Pesach and other holidays that require some kind of prep, I drafted emails to send to the community about, instructions for lighting candles, when's shul, when do you light candles if you're eating out, and kiddush and all that type of stuff. And so I got a lot of really positive feedback on that was information that was really helpful for people. So it's been a busy year, but a great year, and I'm feeling really positively about the role. It's been really fantastic.
That's great. That's really great to hear, Ruth. It's particularly exciting for me because I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, so I can see all of the changes that you're discussing come to life in my mind, and I've really heard a lot of wonderful things about the impact you've been having there. So thank you for sharing that with us. So next, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Maharat Abby Brown Shire. Abby is an educator, a school administrator, and a Jewish community volunteer in Montreal, Canada. Abby holds a degree in religious studies from New York University and pursued an MA in Bible at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. She is a popular Torah teacher in the Montreal community. She works as a private tutor of biblical studies, and she runs a program for students of bat mitzvah age. Abby established a supplementary education high school, of which she serves as principal, and she is active in multiple capacities at Congregation Shire, the synagogue of which her husband is a senior rabbi. Abby is married to Rabbi Adam Shire, and together they have 4 daughters. And we are very excited to have Abby here to also represent a perspective that is not pulpit positioned, to show us the wide variety of opportunities that are available for women leaders and women clergy and Maharats. So thank you, Abby, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. It's great to be here, and hello to everybody out there. I guess it was about a year ago that we graduated, and there was so much excitement and hype for our graduation, ordination, and following about really a day after, we came back from New York, and we left the country, and we were in Europe for about a month, and totally out of sight, out of mind. And we came back to Montreal and couldn't believe the sort of, still, there was so much, the place was a buzz of Maharat, and suddenly everybody knew what Maharat was, and that our synagogue, our shul, was hiring, formally going to hire a Maharat, and that's something that they're very proud of, to have 2/3 of the Maharats in the world. Soon that number, the number is going to decrease in a couple days, so we're going to have to change the equation. But it's a shul that is very proud of being the oldest and largest Ashkenazi synagogue in North America. It's very proud of having the best husband, the best rabbi, of course, because he's my husband. And so the fact that they have 2, right, like for them, it's like, oh, we have 2. So that's part of the excitement. So that's been really, I've been so blessed. I've been so lucky because I've come back. So all of the stuff that I was doing and am doing is sort of grown, and it sort of exploded. So I teach a few weekly classes, and one of them is for young mothers, and they come to me in the schoolyard and say, can I ask you something? And I'm thinking they're going to ask, what I do with my kids, and of course is it okay if we come to your Torah class? Of course, right? What a great thing to come up to me in the schoolyard and want to come to learn Torah. So attendance has been, unbelievable for that, and for the other Parshanim class that I give in the synagogue, and the other programs that I run 2 big programs in the shul. One is a supplementary high school basically program for high school students, once a week, informal Jewish education. It's great, and we've been just trying to grow and be exciting, and also our bat mitzvah program, which has really taken off this year, and we have as many girls having individual bat mitzvahs as boys, and that's pretty unusual. And it's a confluence of many things coming together this year, and having great students and great parents who are eager to learn. So a program, I meet with them as a group 3 times a month with mother-daughter learning. One time is just the girls with, it's usually a combination of some sort of cooking and Torah, just to make it kind of more exciting. And then the third is usually some sort of Kabbalat Shabbat, so some sort of, because many of them are going to be leading a Kabbalat Shabbat service. So that's become part of the sort of cycle, and that's been amazing to see the excitement for that, and the desire for the girls to continue that, and their learning of that. I've been involved in creating outside of the shul. Those are all things that have to do with the shul, but outside of the shul, I've helped organize and teach for a Megillah reading for women in the Orthodox high school. So that was really exciting to get it off the ground, and to have women there, and to have, it was a big deal. Like, were they going to call me Maharat or not call me Maharat? And they did. So that was good. And I guess still in the synagogue, my husband calls it that sometimes I'm the Torah coach, because I often help out with Divrei Torah for bar mitzvahs, weddings, bat mitzvahs, that kind of thing. Anytime that women are participating in a service, I often will sit and learn with people and help them, teach what they've learned. So I'm involved in a lot of committees, sometimes as advisory, an advisory role, sometimes very active committee member. And I'm lucky. I don't know. People always ask me to be part of the adult education series that we have, and our Shavuot learning and things like that. So I've been pretty busy, considering I also try to juggle my time to be at home with my kids. So it's been great.
That's great. Well, thank you for giving us a window into that. It's exciting to hear that the buzz is so sustained. So thank you for sharing that with us, Abby. Our next panelist is Maharat Rachael Feingold, who works in the synagogue with Abby's husband. Rachael is the Director of Education and Spiritual Enrichment at Congregation Shire in Montreal. Before that, she was the Education and Ritual Director at Anshe Shalom B'nai Israel Congregation in Chicago, where she held the Dr. Carol Fuchs Kaufman Rabbanit Chair. Rachael received a BA in Religion from Boston University and completed the Drisha Institute Scholars Program. Her numerous years as a staff member at Camp Nesher in Pennsylvania, as well as other camp settings in the U.S. and abroad, have given her a passion for experiential Jewish education. Rachael lives in Montreal with her husband, Rabbi Avi Feingold, and their daughters, Kinneret, Nadiva, and Hadar. So thank you very much for joining us, Rachael.
Thank you, Rachel, for having me. Hi, everyone out there. Can you hear me okay? This is interesting. As Abby said, when I arrived here in Montreal, the buzz was strong, and it's interesting because I'm still constantly meeting new people and introducing myself, and whether it's within the synagogue community or within the greater Montreal Jewish community, when I explain who I am and that I'm a Maharat, and often it's just like Maharat Abby, because they know her, and it actually makes it a lot easier to explain what Maharat is. What's interesting for me is that I was previously serving in a congregation for 6 years as in a clergy capacity, but without the ordination and without the title, and I was a little bit skeptical in terms of how big of an impact would it really make, how much would it really change the way people looked at me, if I'm essentially doing a very similar job to the job I had done at my other synagogue, but now that I had a credential and a title attached to me. And I have to say, it really has made a huge difference. People understand that I'm part of the clergy team. We have quite a large synagogue, quite a large clergy, and they understand that we have a rabbi, we have a cantor, we have a maharat, we have a ritual director. I'm one of the team, and I really have felt embraced and welcomed right from the beginning. And I'm still meeting people. We have about 1,400 or 1,500 family or member households. So I'm still meeting people that I don't know. I'm meeting them as they come through, saying Kaddish on a yort site, at Minion, or whatever it may be. So I'm still meeting. The other week I met a woman who was one of our 3 times a year attendees. So the last time she saw me was Rosh Hashanah. But she said to me, I want you to know that when you got up there and gave your sermon on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, all the women in the room sat a little taller. And that was really incredible for me to hear. In terms of my role in the congregation, so as the Director of Education and Spiritual Enrichment, I do a lot of the sort of general clergy tasks, like teaching classes and giving sermons and visiting Shiva houses and being an active part of life cycle events. But I also work with our congregation schools. I often guest teach at the programs that Maharat Abby runs. And I've also been working especially to engage our young families And that also helps being a mom who's reaching out usually to other moms, or moms and dads. You know, that we sort of can connect on that level. And and then, you know, there are people who travel through who are so happy to have a female presence in this place that they're visiting. So actually, just this past Shabbat, there was a woman who was visiting, and happened to be, she had a Nida question, and she approached me at Sudat Shlishit, and she wasn't sure. She said, "Are you kind of like a Yoetzet? What are you? Can you answer a question? Can you answer my question?" I said, "Of course." Actually, a Yoetzet is trained only in Nida, and a Maharat is, you know, trained in all areas of halacha, and it was really great. And when she asked me, when she showed me what she wanted to show me, and we started talking, and it became a much longer conversation about some of the things that she was going through in terms of the changes in her body and her Nida practice. And she said, you know, I've asked these kinds of questions to my rabbi many times, but this is the first time that I really feel like things are going to change for me now that she had a little bit more information about what her options were in terms of how to handle her body. So so I've been very, very well received, and I would say, you know, in terms of the challenges, the biggest challenge that I find, especially in a congregation that's very very established and very formal. So the bima, everyone has a place to sit on the bima, and you know, wear their top hat and do this and do that on Shabbat. You know, there really isn't a space for me built into that structure. And one of the things we were just talking about earlier is that Maharat Rory just received her own shtender and her own place, you know, for her graduation, marking her, you know, her role in the shul. And actually, it's a conversation we've been having, like, how can we demarcate my space, which is at the very front of the women's section, because there is this sense of, you know, I'm part of the clergy team. I should have a space that connotes that, and not just be another seat that when I get up and walk away for a minute, I come back and someone else is in my seat. So so that's something we're still working on, but overall it's been very positive and very exciting.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us, Rachel. It's exciting to hear that you can learn from other Maharats who are out in the field. Hopefully this will be the beginning of some, you know, resource sharing and advice sharing and opportunities for you all. So that's a great transition over to our next panelist, who is Rory Picker-Neese, Rory serves as the Director of Programming, Education, and Community Engagement at Base Abraham Congregation in St. Louis, Missouri. Rory is scheduled to graduate from Yeshivat Maharat this coming Sunday, which is very exciting. We're very excited for her. Rory's passion for Judaism, feminism, interfaith dialogue, and social justice has led her to speak and teach internationally, including in Israel, Japan, and Hungary, and more. Rory is a regular contributor to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and is a member of the board of the St. Louis Jewish Light and J-Pro St. Louis. She received her bachelor's degree in religious studies and political science from the Macaulay Honors College at Hunter College, and has studied at the Drisha Institute for Jewish Education and Seton Hall University, and is a graduate of the Joffa Kala Teacher Workshop. Rory is married to Russell Neese, the Director of Educational Technology for Godcast, and she is the mother of Daria and Susanna. So welcome, Rory. We're very excited to have you here on this webinar with us.
Thanks. It's exciting to be here, and I'm really excited to be among such good friends and really wonderful colleagues. As you mentioned, I'm in a somewhat different position than the others that you've heard from, because I have not yet graduated, and so the whole question of title has been very interesting. Who uses a title for me, who doesn't, and how we navigate through that. And it gives me a lot of insight into some of the bigger questions that we've been asking about how the role does change when there's some sort of title. And so it's very funny to try to explain to people what I'm doing, because I have to first explain what I'm going to become and then explain why I'm not quite there yet, but still am in this position. So that's been some funny language that I've had to figure out, and I think all of us could really speak to the importance of that language and how it is that we try to explain ourselves. I think in general also I'm in a different position because our congregation is much smaller than the others that you've heard about, and so we have somewhere probably just under 100 families, but we also have a significant population of students. We're right next to Washington University, and so on any given Shabbat we could have maybe up to 150 people here, but not nearly the size of what's been described. And so my role, what I found so interesting about my role and really so exciting, is that in a way my role is very much based here in the shul, but is very much seen as a communal role. And so in addition to the excitement that has taken place within the community of me coming, there's been a lot, within the synagogue I should say, there's really a lot of enthusiasm in the broader community. And so I think most interesting actually is that when I did come and join the staff here at the shul, the reaction was really not so much, oh, we have this female presence, although people really appreciated that, but it was really a congregation that said, oh, we have you. And they were really interested in what I had to bring. They realized that they needed to expand their staff. They wanted somebody to complement the rabbi. Part of that might have been being female, but it was really about the skills that I was able to bring. And so I really work side by side with Rabbi Chaim Schaffner, and it's the two of us, and we have a part-time office manager, and that's it. And so anything that needs to get done is one of us, and really a slew of volunteers. The entire shul is run by the congregants. But it means that we're able to just pick up on our different strengths. And so I do tend to do more of the programming because that's more of my strength and background. We do fundraising together. We do classes. We'll do different classes. We'll switch off. Every Shabbat we switch off who does the drasha, who does the learner service. And so we'll meet about twice a week, and we'll see what's going on or what's happening with someone, and we'll be able to say, you take that, I'll take this person, and really just work side by side. And so I really appreciate that relationship and really being able to do a little bit of everything. And at the same time, I'm also teaching classes within the community. I'm doing a lot for Federation. I just came back actually from Israel. I staffed the birthright trip for our local Federation here. I was just added to the board of two of the local organizations, one being the Jewish newspaper. And so I'm constantly invited into different spaces just in the broader community. And so I really love that I have the opportunity to talk to people in all different places. So it's very similar to some of what others described, because I'm also helping to run our religious school and things within the congregation that we couldn't have done if there was just one person, and we're able to just expand that with two. But really just working off of our own strengths. And so that's really the most surprising thing for me, I think, has been the embrace of all that I'm able to bring, and the recognition that within that I'm female, but not necessarily anything that's exclusive. Nothing that I haven't had too many people who have been resistant to talking to me about something, but I also haven't had too many people who have sought me out just for that. People who seek me out because my style of teaching is just slightly different than the rabbis. My approach in a drasha is different. And so if they have some sort of question on the parsha, then they might see that I'm more of the person because that's the way I think. And of course there's also the nida shilas, but there's kashrut, there's Shabbos, there's really all of it. And so I really love that I feel like I'm really treated as a colleague with the rabbi and working side by side with him, and really see the role of Maharat, or the role of Maharat to be, as really his colleague, really his, I don't want to say equivalent because he has a lot more experience than I do, but equivalent in terms of any other assistant rabbi who would come into this position.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, Rory. It sounds like it's been a really exciting year, and hopefully the post-graduation will continue to be exciting and invigorating as well. So we're actually going to bring back all of the panelists now and start the question and answer period. We've already gotten a number of questions from the audience, but as a reminder, you can send your questions in the chat section and we'll do our best to get to all of them. Okay. So I really want to thank all of you for sharing those stories and those nuances. Those are definitely anecdotes that we could not have gotten from the press and from the sensational articles that have been going on about Maharat for the past year or two. It's really interesting to hear about, what it's like day to day, talking to congregants, emails, all of those things that we all do in our offices, and you guys do with a little bit of extra flair from the pulpit. So one question that I think that some of you touched on in your opening remarks is the question of critique and the question of acceptance. It sounds like you've all, for the most part, have had really wonderful experiences of communities and colleagues that have been embracing and exciting. But I know that we've seen a lot of negative press and confused press and questions about what the Maharats' roles were going to be in their congregations. So we wanted to hear a little bit. Have you had any negative experiences in your congregations? Have there been congregants who have taken a little bit longer time to warm up to you? Have there been certain relationships with other rabbis or communities in your neighborhood that you've been working on cultivating that may have been a little bit trickier over the years?
I'll jump in if no one else wants to take the bait. I'll just address it in terms of within the congregation and then within the community at large. And I would say actually my experience is almost exactly the same in Chicago as it is now in Montreal, which is that there's a very small minority of people who are sort of what is this? A little bit hesitant, a little bit not sure if this is their cup of tea to have a woman get up and give the Devar Torah in the middle of davening or whatever, fill in the blank. But what's been interesting, that was really, I'm talking now about Montreal more. What's interesting is that they by and large it hasn't had to come from the clergy to say, for the rabbi to say, look, she's here, you've gotta accept her. It's come from the other congregants who maybe are friendly with a small, and when I say small, I mean in a congregation of 1,400 households, I'm talking about half a dozen people. I'm not. There's a tiny minority, but vocal in their way, and people who were there close would say, no, look, she's teaching Torah. There's nothing halachic. There's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to discuss, and that's been, when someone that you trust and for a long time says to you, look, open your eyes. This is amazing. It really starts to shift people's perspective. And in terms of outside of the shul, I have found that I've had contact with many people who are even to the right. I don't know how you want to label people, but to the more Haredi side of the spectrum, who know who I am, who know what I do, who may say, look, that's not for my shul, but validate it and are very accepting of who I am. I have some Chabad cousins here in town, and we were over there for I guess it was on Pesach, on Chol HaMoed, and one of them looked at me and said, "Nu, so give us a Devar Torah." And they're not going to invite me to their Chabad necessarily. That's not where they are, but they value who I am, and they still want to hear Torah from me.
That's great. Any other perspectives on that?
I had a different but a bit similar situation. First of all, within the shul, thank God, I haven't had any issues, and everyone has. I know there was some question with the title. What's the title gonna be like? Everyone's adapted to it perfectly. It's actually it's sort of, there's two anecdotes. One is that I think my second Shabbos here, I went to some of the kids groups during davening, and the parent leading the group said, does anyone know who this is? And one of the kids said, oh yeah, she's our new rabbi. And so it was interesting to see. They all call me Maharat Ruth. I love walking down the street because if any of them are going to school or coming back, I get little hands waving out of the car windows, and they're all very excited to Maharat Ruth, and it's very clear to them. But more than one kid has said to me like, "Oh, you're the rabbi." So it's interesting that they're clearly picking up very naturally at sort of like what the role fundamentally is about, and it's not a source of confusion for them. I think my favorite story about title was, so like I said, we're building a mikvah, and we have some Satmar consultants, and they come up every so often. And the first time they were here, there was a rabbi and then sort of two of his, I guess, like support figures that he comes with. And so Rabbi Hertzfeld very proudly marched me over to them, and he said, you have to meet this woman. Do you know who she is? Do you know what a Maharat is? And I'm standing there thinking, oh God, here we go. And one of them nods and says, oh yeah, and then explains to the other two in Yiddish what I do. And I thought that was a really cool moment, just because like he clearly knew, but it was totally a source of positive energy only. And then later he emailed Rabbi Hertzfeld to say thank you and said, so nice to meet you and Maharat Friedman, you're both doing work together. So it was just a great moment, sort of like what Maharat Rachel said, basically, like even if it's not for you personally, a recognition, whether a small child or an adult in a Satmar community, that like what we're doing is wonderful, and a clear understanding of what it is. And so that's really been great.
That's great. Abby?
So I feel like I've been really lucky because, as opposed to everybody else, I've actually been with this with this congregation. I've been with my family for the last 10 years. So I feel like they've been very invested in my journey and are very proud of it and are part of it. They really are part of it. So definitely within the shul, it's been very positive, and I've been very lucky because the involvement I have, I've spoken at other Orthodox shuls in our city, and so that's also been, totally okay. I think probably one of the best stories is my barista at Starbucks, who is not Jewish, who in the middle of the year, I don't know what connection it had to Oprah, but putting me and Oprah in the same sentence was pretty awesome. And said, I can't believe what you've done. I didn't know you were a rabbi. That's amazing. So that was that's sort of how it goes, even with people I know. So the last 2 weeks ago, we were in Israel on this Montreal mega mission with 600 other Montrealers. We had a Shire bus, and my husband and I were I guess leading this bus. And the way that our bus talked about us, they're like, we have 2 rabbis on our bus, right? That was the way they were explaining to everybody else, and that was also a way to get, the Maharat word out there. So one of the, the leaders, the tour guide, who was also the educational director, and is very into the whole Maharat movement, kept, as much as he could publicly say Maharat Shire. That was, it was as if he was being paid by the word, but. Just to get the word out there. And so people started talking and asking, and just were super excited about it.
That's great. Yeah.
I'll add to that I think I've always joked with people that if you read the media reports about what we're doing, you'll think it's something scandalous, it's something terrible, that there's all of this really big drama surrounding it. And I feel like, and what I say to people is, as soon as you meet any one of us, we're not nearly as scary as the media makes us out to be. And I think you really see it, and you see it when you listen to everyone else talk, that when people really interact with us, I think they really get a sense of what it is that we're doing and what we have to offer. And I've had the same experience of people who had some resistance, and then realized that I wasn't coming in to overhaul the system or to do anything insanely radical. I was coming in to teach Torah and to really just enhance the programming at the shul. I will add that on top of that, I think there is still really some big political ramifications to what we're doing, and I know that that's something that I experience, in not so much within the shul, but within the broader community. And so I have had experiences where, and they're very painful for me actually, where I know that I would have been invited to to teach at the school or to do certain things. There's certain places that if I was just an individual who was learned, who was knowledgeable, I would have been invited in. And because of the title that I will have, I'm too political and I can't enter certain spaces. And like I said, that's not within the congregation, but that's within the broader community. So I have still made some inroads. I teach regular classes, and I get a lot of women from Young Israel, and we'll kind of straddle some of those lines, but it's always a question of what newsletters will announce my classes and which shuls will actually tell their congregants what it is that I'm doing. And that's something that's really interesting for me to see. I did have one instance where we were running a program at the shul, and it involved certain other people, and those people didn't want to be involved if I was involved in it. And I actually, and it was actually really interesting. I don't want to go into details only because I don't want to name any names. So forgive my vagueness for it, but it was a point really where they had called the rabbi and they had said, we really don't want Rory speaking at this, and he actually was completely incensed. He told them that wasn't going to happen. He called me up. He said, they told me not to tell you this, but I'm telling you that this just happened. And I actually said to him that I was going to step back. I actually stepped back because there were certain things that I actually felt needed to happen, and I didn't want it to become about me. That the program wasn't mine. It was about something else, and it was still really painful. I don't know if I even would have spoken at the program, but that was something that became kind of taken away beforehand. But I see that as political. It wasn't someone who had ever met me. It wasn't someone who had ever spoken. Some of the other rabbis really did a lot. They recognized what had happened. They kept talking about the work that I had done. But it was really something that was really noticeable. So I do want to say that there is also that side of it. And the other side, I'll say, because I feel like the acceptance comes in both ways. Everyone's talking about sort of one side, and the other side is we've also been accused of not doing enough, that we're not, that Maharat is not rabbi. And so we get that from the other side. And I had a really fascinating experience with the St. Louis Rabbinical Association. They invited me to be a member. I was accepted. I was voted in conditional upon my graduation. So and there was actually a discussion that they had with me. They said, and because I thought that there was going to be this question, could I be in the Rabbinical Association when I didn't have the title rabbi? And they actually said to me, we want you here. Is it going to be a problem for you? Is there somebody who's going to be upset that you're in a rabbinical association? Should we fix that language for you somehow? Should we do that for you? And that was really coming from some of the Reform rabbis. So I've been very impressed with people surprising me on all ends. But I do want to still acknowledge that I think on some kind of like political level, that is something that's very live and that is impacting the work that at least I'm doing here in St. Louis.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to hear, about the support that you're getting from many different outlets, whether that's from your congregation or from the rabbis who you're working with, or from the rabbis in the congregations who are a little bit further to the left, or from the Satmar rabbis who are a little further to the right, who are just excited to see you and caring about the mikveh and bringing that back to women. And I know that's something that we've talked a lot about in different contexts, is that you four are really at the beginning of this movement, and probably in a place where it can be a little bit lonely, where it can be difficult to be blazing the trail. So can you speak a little bit about where is it that you find support, how you support each other, if you're connecting with women rabbis in other denominations, or with women clergy for support, or if you're getting that support from other Orthodox rabbis, who are the people who are really helping you be where you need to be and helping you grow and mentoring you throughout this process? No support?
Okay, I'll jump in because I'll jump in, but I think that probably the ones with real clergy positions should hopefully are getting more support. Again, I just feel lucky. Like I get to be supported in what I do because we have, because Maharat Rachael is there. So it's only made the programs and everything that we're doing or anything that I've been involved in better and more, to have I don't know. So that in that way, it's support, and I think that the whole, at least from what I understand, I think everybody is sort of on board to make this, as exciting as possible. For me, the truth is that I do most of my stuff is really individual, is one-on-one teaching students, whether it's conversion or bat mitzvah, and some other stuff. So I guess it doesn't require perhaps the same support. But I guess I know it's out there. I don't know.
I also just it's interesting to hear Abby's reaction, because I feel like mine's somewhat similar. That sort of like you said at the beginning, Rachel, a lot of the media has been sensationalist, and I feel very lucky to be in a show where people have welcomed me, and I didn't even know what to expect because I didn't know what it was going to be like, but it feels like a very normal job. I mean, as normal as working in a shul with Rabbi Herzfeld can be, but given that, it feels like a very normal position, and I do feel very supported by the congregation, and of course by Rabbi Herzfeld, who has been enormously helpful and supportive 100% all the time. And so, there are always questions that will come up, or did I have this right reaction in this particular situation? And then it's very helpful to check in with a friend or a colleague. But in general, I don't feel like it's such a pressing issue that I've needed to seek out specific support structures specific to my role as a Maharat.
Okay, great. So we have a question from the audience, which is, as Dayanot are starting to be ordained in Israel, are you considering reordaining or any kind of additional training to get that degree or title? No? Everyone's tired with school now? No? Okay. Next question from the audience is, what are specific tools that your congregants can give you to help you succeed? What are tools that congregants have already given you? And what are things that they can do better to help you, or to help you help them?
I find feedback really helpful.
Feedback? Okay.
It's funny because sometimes people certainly share feedback, but then once in a while, like someone just emailed me and she said, "Oh, I'm sure no one tells you this to your face, but everyone talks about you all the time and how much we love you." And so it's sort of funny because I feel like I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I feel like I'm in a position where it's a very public role, and I think because of that, people often feel like maybe they don't want to give you feedback to your face, but it's actually it's really helpful to have that. And of course, not only just the we love yous, but all kinds of feedback. And so that's actually something that I feel like I wish I could ask for more of, and I do sometimes, but that would be great.
Great. Next question is about, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I was just going to add to what Ruth was saying about feedback. I actually do have a few congregants who are really wonderful about it, and then they're sometimes very apologetic. They say, "I don't know if you want this." I usually do this for the rabbi, so I just listen to you with that ear, and I so appreciate it. It's really wonderful. And I also have a few congregants who feel like they want to contribute. We have a very big culture of volunteers, like I said, and want to contribute with their skills. And it's so wonderful because I have one person who offered to just start doing singing lessons. I don't really sing, but she runs a music school, and she said, I was joking one day, I said, I don't have any musical talent, and she said, I bet you do. And she started doing music lessons with me, and that also translated into some speaking and voice lessons. And so, and I really just, I love that that's part of my job, is to spend an hour and a week with her, but that it's also, and that's her way of really giving back to me. So I think that really exactly what Ruth was saying, of feeling comfortable sharing with us, realizing that I feel so intimidated sometimes, knowing that people see us on this higher plane, I mean literally like on the bima, and feel like then we're not approachable, which is the opposite of what I think any one of us want, or feel like what we have to give is more than they do, which I think is also not what any of us want them to think.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And that part of it feedback for us, but they're also their own skills.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So the next question actually comes from one of our board members. She asks, do you have responsibilities for Minion and for davening? And if you don't attend Minion, do you feel like you're out of the religious flow?
So I'll jump in. I find Minion to be the most difficult piece of defining the role of the Maharat.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that for a number of reasons. First of all, daily Minion is a male space in the Orthodox community. And even at our shul, where the mechitza is side by side, which is much better than the daily Minion at my last shul, where it was sort of the mechitza of the 4 chairs on the side, which was an improvement over what was it before. But anyway, even so, daily Minion, when I'm there, and I'm there almost every morning, and some mincha mariv, when I'm there, I'm, if not the only woman, then maybe one of 2 or 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
unless we have, a special yortzeit breakfast or some other, an ofruf or something. And I find that a very difficult place to assert my leadership. And I wait till the moment that the last Kaddish is done, and I then walk up to the bima and give my Dvar Torah, and that, even that wait feels strange, and I like to think that my presence at Minion makes those other women feel more comfortable and more noticed. I think it's also a challenge often in the evenings when we have 9 and we're calling for a 10th, and it's then that my presence actually counts more, because then I'm with those women on that other side of the mechitza who are maybe feeling the challenge of not being counted in the Minion, but I don't know if they realize what a challenge it is to me to find my place in that space. Not to mention the fact that I have 3 very young kids, and I sort of dump them on my spouse every morning and run out the door just as they're starting to scream for breakfast. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing in terms of the support. I was going to chime in with that the support of my husband has been the reason I can do anything that I can do, and the sacrifices that he has made in terms of especially Shabbat davening and juggling the kids. And even if we do have a babysitter on Shabbat, we maybe can't always make it to mincha or even into shul, depending on who's having a meltdown. So that's a big challenge as well.
Yeah, a lot of what Rachel said resonates with me. I'm expected to be at every Minion, both Shacharis and Mincha Mariv, and it's funny because sometimes we'll have a woman saying Kaddish, and then it feels very significant that I'm there. But if we don't, then yeah, sometimes it does feel a little bit strange. It was actually funny on Erev Pesach. There were men literally in the hallway because the room was so big, and I had the entire half of the room to myself, and which is, I mean, it's just, I can only imagine what an alien would think walking into that room. And so, but yeah, I find it's interesting because it is the one part of the job that I do find it presents a little bit of a struggle for me. I think that I mean, it's a bigger conversation, but in terms of like Orthodox women going to shul, whether we're socialized into that being a value. And so, yeah, in that sense, I don't really feel like I've like gotten part of my day out of the way when I go to shul in the morning. It just it's not something that comes as naturally to me. Whereas I think like my husband, for example, is really grateful for the opportunity to live 2 blocks from shul and be able to go in the morning because that's something that he's always done. So, but that being said, when I'm there in the morning, I think it's an important presence and I get to know the regulars and that wouldn't happen otherwise. And so it's sort of, to me, this weird tension where on the one hand, it's an experience that I just, I'll just be honest, I don't connect to naturally. But at the other hand, I think it's really important for me to be there. So I'm always like in this fight with myself about that. And how do I really feel about that? And kind of feeling like we're sort of being pulled in both directions with that. And I also definitely, what Maharat Rachael said about being the 10th person, but being the only woman there and waiting for a minion. It's just, it's sort of an interesting experience.
Interesting. So you spoke about those other women who were on your side of the mechitza, who were maybe saying Kaddish or didn't know if they should be there, if they felt comfortable there. What sorts of changes have you seen in the women in your congregation over the past year? Have you seen, little girls being more interested in doing certain prayers, or more women showing up for Minion, or women and men advocating for any changes in the synagogue, whether that has to do with architecture or board positions? How have you seen the impact of a woman on the bima or a woman clergy on the congregants in your synagogue?
I'll say that I think 1 year is a very short amount of time to have any noticeable change, but Maharat Abby, who's been here for many years, has really brought about an enormous increase in interest in bat mitzvahs, and I benefit from that interest in that now. These girls have a connection to me, and I know who they are because Abby has essentially brought these families in and these girls to be more interested. She talked a little bit about the bat mitzvah program, which is really so successful. So I think time will tell what each of us will bring. I will say that those who are there, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think people are gonna start to come to daily Minion simply because there's a Maharat there. But those who are coming, who are, like I said, saying Kaddish or coming for any other reason, I think certainly feel more at home there because of our presence.
Abby?
Can I add to, I think Maharat Rachael is selling herself short, but you've gotten the young girls to do Anim Zmira on Shabbat, so that's a huge thing. Maharat Rachael has been instrumental in sort of putting Kabbalat Shabbat for women also more in the forefront, so that we actually added that as a program this year, that we had this, we always have a sisterhood Shabbat where women get to speak and do some of the tefillot, like the prayers for the government and Israel, and give a sermon. They've been doing this for years and years, which is the great thing about Shire, that women have been involved in different roles, so it opens up that much more sort of space. But we also added having Maharat Rachael lead Kabbalat Shabbat on a Friday night. So suddenly these girls who are doing it once for their bat mitzvah are saying, oh, now I can do it, and let's get Maharat Rachael to do it more often, and all these things. So it becomes part of the regular thing. And it also, the mothers then see, and the grandmothers see, oh, we can do this? Oh, I didn't know. And it leads, one thing leads to another. And I've definitely seen like the huge change or the shift. So it's been great.
Great. That's great. Well, thank you. It's great to hear, Abby and Rachael, your perspectives on each other and your respective impacts on your community. So we're almost out of time. So I want to thank you all for participating and ask if we can go around just to close. What advice would you give to future Maharat students or women clergy students about tips for being out in the field? What are one or two things that you wish you had known a year ago or a month ago or a week ago that you would like to share with your future colleagues? And we'll start with Rory, who is will be a newly minted Maharat.
I think that, my advice is, it's not necessarily exclusively for women, but I think maybe as women it's something, or as a woman it's something I struggle with more, that it's really just about having the confidence in what you have to offer. And I think that's something that I never knew what other people were able to do. That just wasn't the world I was in. I never knew what a Beit Midrash looked like that didn't have women in it. I never knew what other classes could look like. And it's not about what other classes look like or what another Beit Midrash looks like. It's about what I have to offer and the people that I'm able to reach. And it's just about having the confidence in your own skills and your own talents, and knowing that what you have to contribute is what somebody in the world needs.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Abby?
Okay, I guess two things. One is, I guess, to something I still can't wrap my head around is that people are listening to what you're saying, and people are looking at you as an example, and looking at what you wear, and looking at all these things, these external things that you didn't really think about before you left the house. And so those are some of the things without consuming you, just to sort of be aware of. And on a personal note, it's, we're trying, our challenge is to think out of the box and to find roles where women can impact a community even without a specific clergy position on the bima. And I guess I feel that I've been able to do that. So if there are other women who are in my position where they may not be looking specifically for that kind of role, or can't do it at this moment in their lives, it's possible. And so far we've seen that, and it's going to continue to grow. And I see that what just one thing leads to another. I think that just having women involved in all of these, in the community, in the synagogues, in schools, is just going to change the map.
Thank you. That's really inspiring to hear about the breadth of opportunities available. Rachel?
I spent a long time being frustrated that often when I get up to speak or to give the prayer for the state of Israel or whatever it might be, that the first thing people see is my femaleness. That the first thing people encounter when I get up to teach, the first thing often on their mind is that I'm a woman doing this. And I was frustrated with that because I'm not doing this as a woman, I'm doing this as a human being. I'm doing this to fulfill who I am as a person. The fact that I happen to be female is not going to stop me. It's not going to hinder me, but it's not the reason that's motivating me. And I realized really through this past year that it's okay to embrace the fact that people see me and see a woman clergy, and that's often the first thing that they see, because that's a big deal for a lot of people, even if it's not as big a deal for me. I know that may sound strange, but it's not as big a deal for me to be a woman. I've done everything in my life as a woman. Why wouldn't I do this? And yet, on that day on Rosh Hashanah, when I stepped down from that first sermon, and this is a synagogue that was founded in 1846 and has a very long, deep tradition about everything that they do, and that was a big deal when I stepped back down into the women's section, and there were women with tears in their eyes, and one woman took me by the hand and said, "We've been waiting for you." And I feel that I've been willing to embrace that this is something that people have been waiting for, and the willingness to sort of fill that gap for people, I think takes, like Rory said, the confidence, but also the willingness to represent something beyond myself.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. And Ruth?
I think the best advice I could give, and this is something that Rabbi Sarah gave us all at least a year ago, but that really took me, I think, about 6 months to internalize, is just be yourself. That's what people want. I don't know if it's a uniquely female thing, but we often try to be what we think other people want us to be. And I think I spent some time thinking like, I have to be really pastoral all the time, or I have to be really formal all the time. I have to be really this all the time. And a couple months ago, someone said, you know, people love you here because you're yourself, and they feel like they can connect with you, and that you're very real. It's okay that you're not, you know, the same person as Rabbi Hertzfeld. That's good, right? People want different things, and I really feel like over the past couple months, I've gained a lot more confidence in that, and really knowing that I don't have to try to be someone else all the time, whether it's what I wear. I spent one morning agonizing over an outfit, going back to the support of the husband thing, because it has a couple sequins and it was a bright purple skirt, and I was like, I don't know, can I wear this to shul? And of course some of the women said, we love your outfit, we love you, you know, you wear things like this here. So just really be yourself, and people will see that, and they'll love you for it.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time to speak with us, and thank you for the people at home for signing on. It's really been a privilege to spend the past hour hearing about your days and your journeys and your advice for everyone. So I really want to thank you for all of the work that you do, in addition for taking the time to tell us all about it. And I hope that the people who have signed on tonight, that you will continue to join in on these conversations, that you'll follow Jofa on Facebook, that you'll follow us on Twitter, check out our blog, and we'll be continuing these conversations over the next few months and over the upcoming year. And we hope that you'll continue to join us in those conversations, and that you'll join Maharat, Rory Picker-Nice on our next webinar in July on the subject of mikvah. So thank you all, and enjoy your evenings.